Hello and welcome to the King's Forum podcast show. I have Hannah back on the show. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Here to talk about your self-love, self-acceptance journey, finding yourself. Could you start kind of, about some of the toxic relationships you were in and kind of what led you to here and now and to being this self-help advocate?
Yes. So I would say the last 3 major relationships I've had have been pretty toxic. My recent one was the most toxic. And I started noticing, hey, what's the common denominator in these toxic relationships? And it was me. I always thought it was the other person. But it takes 2 to tango. And not saying that they had no issues, obviously. My exes also have their own issues. But this recent last one was a 5-year relationship. My most serious one, I guess, after I got divorced. And it was really bad. Things got physical. There was a lot of mental and emotional manipulation of me and of abuse, mental and emotional abuse. And I've always been kind of like big on self-growth and self-help. Something that I think my dad ingrained into me is that life is about always getting better, always improving, and always growing. And I think being with this last toxic ex, which he hasn't been diagnosed, but from what I've learned about narcissism, he has narcissistic personality disorder. And I don't know if you probably have heard of it, but people who have been in relationships with people with narcissistic personality disorder, it's devastating because there's you start questioning your own reality because there's gaslighting involved. You start questioning a lot of things, which I think I look at it as a positive thing because it helped me question who I am and all the things that I thought about myself, which is really a great place to start, I think, for self-awareness, figuring out like, what do I really believe about myself? What do I talk to about myself in my head? Like, what kinds of things do I say? And so some of the stuff he said were things that he said to me were really like a healthy, normal person would have been like, no, like, there's no way I'm going to allow you to talk to me this way. And a healthy person would have been like, I'm out of here. Like, you're crazy. But being, mentally ill, at the time, and also having a lot of a really, really negative self view of myself, the things that he said were just normal to me. I was like, oh, well, that's what I already believe about myself. So he's just confirming what I believe about myself, and so like, there's definitely a lot of trauma and pain and stuff that I'm still working on, but I look at it as a positive experience, and because I'm a very spiritual person. So for me, it's a positive experience of like spiritual awakening and awareness of like, hey, this is how you talk to yourself. This person is just reflecting what you say to yourself. And doesn't it feel way worse when you hear it out loud? You actually hear someone saying it, it's more jarring because you're like, oh, whoa. When you say it in your head to yourself, it doesn't sound so bad. When you say things like I'm fat or I'm ugly or I'm a bad person or I deserve to be punished, it doesn't seem bad because it's in here. But when somebody says it to you, you're just kind of more like, well, even if you believe it and it's like they're confirming it, you're kind of like, whoa, that's a little bit harsh to hear on the ears,
Definitely. I was just thinking, going back, your first toxic relationship, what was your state of mind like going into that first relationship?
I was also in a very traumatized, mentally ill state. But at the time I was like 17 years old. Okay. I knew I had issues, right? Like I knew I had issues. I didn't understand the depth of the trauma and the emotional wounds that I had incurred as a child until probably like this year when I started doing trauma-informed coaching, or getting coached. I'm not coaching, I'm getting coached. and really started facing it, because I have done therapy before, and the therapist helped, but I don't think she was really aligned with, therapists. Just because someone's a therapist doesn't mean they know everything, right? So you
That's
have
true.
to find the right
Yeah,
therapist to
the right.
align with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the longest time I couldn't find one who could align with what I believed and what I like. We just didn't match. And then this year I found a coach who just clicked. She literally has been through the same things that I've been through and healed herself. So someone who's already gone down that path is much
Mm,
more equipped to, you
definitely.
know, but I was definitely in a mentally ill, traumatized state with the first toxic relationship,
So
for
from that,
sure.
you then, do you think it was a rebound, the second relationship? You went from the first to the
So
second.
this is
Go
so
on.
this is the so that first relationship, the most important or biggest relationship I ever had, ended up in marriage, right?
Okay.
Um,
When you go. Okay.
yeah, he is a wonderful, wonderful human being. He's now my business partner and we're
Right.
divorced. I see him every day. Yeah. So this was so yeah, so that was really toxic because a lot of it I still feel to this day was my fault. Um, but I've also learned to recognize that um, me, Hannah, from a child to that point, logically, if I look at the events in her life that led her to
Yeah.
there,
The
I'm
timeline.
talking about myself in the third person. Yeah. I can see why she behaved that way, why I behaved that way. And I'm much more like able to forgive myself, because up until even this year, I wasn't able to forgive myself for what I consider to be the ultimate sin, other than killing someone, is to cheat on somebody, right? Which is what I ended up doing.
Wow.
Um, on yeah, on my ex. But so I see how it lit up, but so I'm not saying it's justified. I don't want to say cheating is justified ever, because there are different ways to handle it. But if you're coming from a traumatized mind and the other person is also emotionally not capable of supporting you or being there with you, as a young traumatized mind, it's possible that you could cheat, right? And
Yeah.
so it's still difficult for me to even talk about it. And this is the first time I've ever talked about it, like publicly with anybody. My friends know, but this is a truth bomb I was telling you that I was gonna tell you. So like I ended up cheating on him because so I would break up with him a lot because I had a lot of attachment issues, anxiety. So I would break up every time we fought.
Yeah.
I thought that was a breakup. I didn't know how to work through fights. So every time we fought, I would break up with him, break up with him, break up with him. I would threaten divorce. I would break up with him lots of times before we got married. Then we got married, and then I would threaten divorce all the time, right? And then, but he's the kind of guy who's like, I'll always be here, I'll stay here. But the thing was that he wasn't capable of emotionally being there.
Okay.
So he was not giving up per se, but he had, in my view, emotionally and mentally checked out.
Yeah. No,
So I felt, yeah. So it's like you're together, but you feel more alone, right? And so in my traumatized mind, I'm like, okay, the only way, because I was too weak to actually leave, because I'm like, well, he's still, so then I would go back. So I think I did what I thought was an unforgivable sin, and that was my way of like severing the tie,
yeah.
to
Yeah.
cheat, if
Without
that
like
makes sense.
face to face saying, look, it's over. This was going to end the relationship. Basically, you took it to that point of doing something
Yeah.
in action that was going to end it, because the
Yeah.
result
And
of that, the consequences were the fact that a man in a relationship, his woman cheats on him. Yeah, it's the end most times. But the other way around, women will take a man back sometimes, not all the time, but a man,
right.
it's like the biggest thing you can do to a man is cheating on him when you're in a committed relationship. It's like the way
Yeah.
we take that, like someone else with the woman that we have affection for, we can't kind of look past that and start again, a fresh start, because that's it, it's done.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting.
that's how our mind works, and we're quite like that. We won't, and I was just going to get to the point of, for a woman to cheat's a big thing, because men, it's the way our minds work, the whole sexual, it's all about, it's a visual thing for us, and
Uh,
kind of like we were stimulated by the way a woman looks, her sexiness, her appeal. I think it's I'm just going off, I don't know for a fact, of course, but I see it as it's easier for a man to do that type of thing, where women are more emotionally involved when it comes to sex. So
well, it was more the emotional,
yeah,
the emotional cheating started first.
yeah,
Like what I wasn't getting from him, what my needs and wants were not getting met.
I hear that.
I searched the emotional first, right? The emotional tie. And you're exactly right. It wasn't just about the sex. Like it was more, I was actually online, I met them. So obviously it wasn't about the sex. Let's say them, but like one guy, right? So it was like only ended up sleeping with one guy, but like it was the emotional like aspect that I was not getting from him, that I like felt so alone that this guy was
fulfilling that
bringing in that.
Yeah,
exactly. And then it went to sexual, but also the funny thing is I never really hid it from him. I was kind of like open about it,
just doing
but
it.
I think I think he didn't really believe that I was gonna go to that extent.
Wow.
And it's like I think it really crushed him. And then
Well, imagine.
yeah, and so I'm smiling as I say this because it's like a nervous smile. I hope I don't come off bitchy like I did something bad and I'm proud of it. But I'm smiling because I'm seeing myself from like a kind of like outwards instead of identifying so much. So after that, that was the only way, like think about, that's how a child would act. A child who doesn't know how to say my needs and my wants are not being met would go out and do something to hurt the other person. Like that's what a child does. You slap them back, right? So I see that I was acting from a like childish place because my biggest traumas happened when I was very, very tiny, like 3 or 4 years old, you know? And so I didn't know how to speak up for my emotional needs, how to speak up for Hannah. But so that was the way I ended it. It was like, because I knew the relationship wasn't giving, like, it was not fulfilling for me. It wasn't good. So I didn't know how to end it healthily, right? And so that was the extent I took it to. Then what that made me do is I already had a belief that I was damaged and broken and bad, but that put me on a level of I'm a very bad person. So subconsciously, when you think you're a bad person, you go looking for punishment. So it's not that, so like my ex probably is a horrible person, but I don't like to believe that because I truly believe everyone can be healed and everyone's good deep down inside, really deep.
I believe the same.
Yeah, everyone is good. It's just that we have undealt with shit that makes us act crazy, right? And so he for sure has stuff he's never dealt with. And if he doesn't deal with it, then he'll always be a person that acts shitty, right?
Yeah.
But so I don't want to blame him and say, oh, he abused me. Because I don't like that victim mentality. What I look at it is my subconscious, like all the undealt with trauma that I had, and then me cheating on my ex-husband made me believe I am a very bad person. I'm not deserving of love. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. I need to be punished because growing up in a Christian household, if you do something bad, you're punished. Like, and not just punished normally, you get a beating, right? So subconsciously, all these things.
Yeah.
So I would seek out unconsciously somebody who will fit that bill to abuse me because I deserve to be punished. So that's what I realized about this. And that's why I don't want to come from a victim standpoint where he's so bad, he abused me out of nowhere. If I was in a healthier place, if I truly believed I deserved love, that I loved myself, I would never have like associated with him. You know what I mean? From a healthy mindset.
I hear that.
Yeah.
And just looking back on your first relationship, you're very young as well, so immaturity as well. You know, see, this is the thing about relationships, and the older you get, you can look back and say, you know what, maybe it's a thing where if we want to get into a committed relationship, we need that level of maturity, don't we, within ourselves, and knowing who we are as people and having that life experience first, because being a committed relationship and one that's going to work and put our all into, you know, you need to have that level of maturity to have understanding, emotional intelligence, your self-worth. You need to be really aware of all these things going into a relationship, because it's something you have to keep working at. So
Yes.
you go into these relationships when we're really young.
Yes.
It's a bit chaotic because we're still finding out who we are and, you know, what we really want in a partner. And, you know, so we're still finding out about ourselves. And that brings even more complications into this relationship with someone, because we're trying to find out about ourselves along that way. So that's creating more chaos, and you can change. So you can be in a relationship for a year or 2 years, and within that year or something, you can become another version of yourself. So it's for the person that's, depending on their age group as well, because they could be doing the same. But let's say it was an older dude, he would be like, oh, what's happened? You've changed. You never used to be like that, but you're just evolving as a person. But while relationship, so this is what brings in the extra difficulties, I find, because when we're young and we'll find out about ourselves, it complicates the relationship and the union you have with this other person.
I absolutely agree. I also believe that people heal through relationships.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be a perfectly healed or know who you are to be in a relationship, you know? But I definitely think as kids and children, we're never taught how to properly process our emotions. So we learn arithmetic, mathematics, and stuff in school, science, but we're not really taught the most important things, which is like, how do you handle yourself? How do you process your emotions? How do you interact with people better, right? And so it's like, if we're taught that, even though we're still finding out who we are, like it could be a partnership where you both evolve together, because at the end of the day, nobody truly knows what somebody else feels. You can never know 100% what somebody else is feeling or thinking, or the fantasies or dreams that they have in their head, unless you're inside their brain and body, right? You cannot. And so no matter how much you feel like this person is my soulmate and we get each other, you still have to communicate, and you still have to be willing to evolve together, right? And that means if you fell in love with one person right now, like if they decide to change and evolve, true unconditional love is like, okay, I see you. It's definitely different, but I see you. I love you no matter what, you know? And unconditional love does not mean that you have to stay in that relationship. Maybe it's compatibility is not there anymore, right?
Definitely.
But that's two separate things. Yeah. So I definitely hear where you're coming from, where especially when you're young, you don't even know like how to talk about your emotions. You know, like
I've been in these relationships before, and I'm just like, now looking back, I'm like, I was just too immature. I was still becoming the man. I was still getting that, coming out of the, my latter teenage years and growing into a man and becoming who I am. And, I was with these women who, at the time, I was just like, I don't really know why I'm with you after like a year or something. I don't quite even get together. You kind of, when I think back, kind of some of the toxic relationships I've been in, and I just think, but I was just so immature. I was thinking like that immaturity level of, because I always used to like dating older women. So when I was younger, I used to find that, I would try and see the immaturity be with a woman who would be direct. And that's why I liked older women, because they're very direct. They'll tell me exactly how they're feeling, rather than the women my age or younger would always be unsure. And I'm just like, I don't like dealing with this. I just like someone who's direct. We're going to see each other, we're going to go out, and none of these silly games and all this nonsense. I was just like, look, do you want to see me? Do you want to go out? Let's do it. Let's whatever. So, and I used to find that younger women of my age would always be a games thing. Oh, I'm not sure. Or, they got so many options. They don't know whether they want to see someone else. So that used to bother me. So I was just like, forget them. So, but then the older women, I used to try, and I remember one woman in particular, I was trying to change her. I was trying to make her change. She was very much not into commitment. And I felt hard for her, and I was like, look, I'm a good guy, be with me. And she was like, no, I know what I want, and it's not you to be in a relationship. All these like, wow. It's like, what? I've got these emotions, but they're not, you know, a woman who knows what she wants, she's just going to tell you. She's not going to play games and be
Right.
like, look, I don't want a relationship with you. It could be casual. We can have fun. But anything beyond that, no, I don't want. So yeah, I learned the hard way. And yeah, and the
Wow.
experience and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a story for another day, because there's a lot more to it. But yeah, you find out, and that's through this experience, life experience. And you know, I called it the process of elimination, when you're having all these relationships and one after the other, and it's kind of like, you know, until you get to this person that you think's is right for you, and you actually connect. And you know, after all the dating and all along the way, you find someone, you're like, oh yeah, this person's decent, we can chill out and hang together and date, and you know, someone I
Right.
like, and you know. So I was looking at that as a maturity thing, and kind of where you come from in that regard.
Do you know, can I ask you, where do you think the need to want to change her came from?
That's a really good question. Where did it come from? Wow. I had such strong feelings for this woman at the time. Couldn't set, probably close to feeling like I was falling in love with her. And because of those emotions is why I wanted to change her. Because I was like, look, I feel this, again, one-sided immaturity. Because what's she thinking? It's just like, oh, me, I want this, so she should do it. Like, why should she? She believes in what she believes in. She knows what she wants. Because I want this, I think it's all going to change for me and fit perfectly. She's all of a sudden going to want commitment because I'm such a cool guy. I'm such a nice guy, and I'm Mr. Right for her. So all these immature like ways of thinking and mindset. So it came from my love for her, how much I cared for her. I thought I could change her. That's where it came from. It was a really basic thought.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, I was really young, early 20s, and she was like late 20s. And I was like, look, I'm a decent guy, let's settle. Me and you, great couple. And she was like, no, I don't want to. We can make it casual. So those where it came. But as I said, when you're immature and you're learning, you're finding yourself.
Right.
And it's nice because I look back and I say, right, you know, I handled it, but I was very immature in relationships. And, you know, yes, I was into casual flings and that, but I never really settled down and never felt that, you know, those commitment things, I'm sure, came from maybe childhood. And my dad used to, you know, go off and do his own thing. And, you know, so it comes from a child. And they divorced really young. Sorry, when I was young, my parents. So a bit of that. So maybe that whole.
That's so interesting that you say that about the divorce. Because today I was just watching a YouTube video. This guy I really like, his name is Aaron Doty, and he was talking about how I have the same issue. I like to find men to fix them or change them, because if I get them to change and see how amazing I am and commit to me, that means I'm valuable. That means I have worth.
I hear that.
That means that I'm lovable and that I'm valuable, that I'm not unworthy of love, that I'm not this unlovable being, right? If I can change them, right? So it comes from like that self-worth. And he was talking about how his parents had divorced when he was 5, and somehow in a child's mind he took that upon himself as, oh, that's my fault. That probably means it's because I'm not lovable enough, they wouldn't stay together for me, you know, and things like that. Absent parents or emotionally negligent parents. So we somehow, something about her triggered something. There's like something about this, actually this year when you're talking about this, I broke up with my toxic ex in January, and I met this guy in April, and I swear to God, it was very short, but I felt like I fell in love. Something about him triggered something in me where I felt all kinds of things, and really accelerated my self-healing journey, because I was like, something's going on, because this is like too intense for somebody I've only known for a short period of time to be using the love word, who probably doesn't even, you know, and I never told him I loved him or anything like that, but it was like, the way I was acting, I was like so full of emotion. It was like very strong emotions, like you said, very strong emotions, brought out my immaturity thing. I ran, which is what I do. I like was like, okay, so what are we like after a month? You know, I was like, what are then I ran, which is what I normally do. I run away, I avoid, then avoid like anxiety avoidant. It's a attachment theory. They call it anxious and avoidant, anxious avoidant, anxious avoidant. So now I'm committed to myself to be just single for until my next birthday. But when you're talking about your story, I was just like, that's so interesting because I could totally relate about the if I maybe I can change it. Like I'm a decent girl. I would say I'm a catch, you know. Why are you not seeing that I'm a catch? You know, I'm like where you were back then. I'm right there right now. You know, it's just like what like but the thing is I'm aware of it, right? So I'm not like deep in it. I am deep in it. I feel the emotions, but at the same time I also have the awareness of okay, you're acting this way. Like I could see, okay, Hannah, where is this coming from? There's some kind of wound in you, a core wound. They call it core wounds. When you're a child that made you, well, like in my case, my father was very emotionally negligent. And he also used to beat my ass too. So there was that on top of it, you know? So I totally hear where you're coming from. And that's why I was like asking you about it, because I was like, that's interesting that, you know, what was it about her? Something about her triggered you to feel like, hey, look, I can like change for me. You can commit, you know?
Looking back though, it feels so silly. Yeah, so yeah, just talking about kind of, you know, being sensitive and having a big heart and protecting that, going, you know, and something I learned with age and experience was, you know, to make people earn that love and affection from me and that trust. Because when I was younger, I used to just give it out freely and to people I didn't think really truly deserved it. So I had to learn the hard way by being taken advantage of, being taken for granted, not feeling receiving the love back that I felt I deserved. So yeah, with age and experience, I've been a bit wiser about who I give out. As I was saying, I give bits of that, so it's not completely cold and being someone I'm not, but just being a bit more reserved. And we go to boundaries and setting boundaries. You know, that's really important. Is having these boundaries.
Right. Right.
And maybe letting people in who, you know, through trust and time, I let these people in. So I try and set boundaries now. What I was getting at.
Yeah, boundaries is a big thing. Yeah.
So talk to me, this self love journey. Now we talked about the first relationship, going into the second, and then
so the second one was the guy that I ultimately cheated on my ex-husband with, and it was long distance. I really felt at the time like I loved him, like he totally got me. He had cheated on his ex-wife, and so he was living in a state of guilt and whatever. And it worked because it was long distance, because I needed somebody who was available all the time for my emotional needs and somebody that wasn't really in my space. So I met with him in person several times. And then probably about like a year, like six or like women, we know already when it's not gonna work and we mentally check out, but it takes us some time to really pull the trigger. I knew, and he was also on 3 hours ahead of me time wise. So when I would get home from work, and this is also the time when I just bought the business with my ex-husband, so he would get jealous about my ex-husband.
Well, imagine
he would
natural.
Yeah, he would get jealous about it. He would get like super angry, and I'm in my head, I'm thinking, you're the one who stole me basically from my ex-husband, and why are you getting jealous? And oh yeah, it was just a mess. It was very messy. And finally he would scream at me on the phone. So that was when I started first feeling like, okay, there's something seriously wrong with this person. He's yelling at me and screaming at me on the phone. My ex who I cheated on had never done anything like that. He's a very nice, gentle guy. And so I was like, something's not right. So I started feeling like something was off. Then I took a trip to Hawaii with my best friend. It was like an impromptu trip about 2016 in December. And there, just the healing energy, the healing vibes, I just was like, I knew this was it. And he had bought a ticket to come see me in December. He was supposed to come for Christmas. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I'll refund you the ticket or something. I'll give you the money. It's not going to work. So I ended it with him. But the thing with me is that I had attachment issues. So I would call him and text him again after for a little while here and there until I met the real toxic ex. And it was like, I've always jumped relationship to relationship to relationship. There's never really a long gap.
Yeah,
since I was like,
you know what, Hannah, I see it as you need to heal. It's like losing someone passing away.
oh yeah,
Grieving from one
grief.
relationship. Yeah, and we don't allow ourselves to heal properly from relationship to relationship.
Because it's too painful.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's exactly why. And we carry this baggage from one relationship to the next relationship.
Right.
And we're getting more and more suitcases. So start with one. And now we got two. Now you got three, and they're full. They're packed. You know, the time so funny you open it and it springs open, and all the clothes start flying out, and also
and like before I had any of these toxic ex relationships, back when I was a teenager, I used to play the song "Bag Lady" by Erykah Badu all the time, and be like, I don't want to be that bag lady. And here I am. I got multiple suitcases on my back.
Pulling them along into the next relationship. And not even emptying the suitcases, just pulling all that baggage, all that shit.
Bring the trauma,
yeah, that's what it is, into the next one. So,
but also, if you don't heal that, you find people that are gonna keep replaying the same trauma.
Yeah. Because you're attracting. It's karma, isn't it?
Your bag looks compatible to my bag, so let's get together.
You've got a his and hers matching suitcase set.
Yeah,
his and hers. He hasn't unpacked his. You haven't unpacked yours. They're very similar, Samsonite or whatever. Matching suit or Louis Vuitton if you want to go up more.
The same. It's crazy. Like, okay, I'm into astrology signs. So my ex-husband is an Aries, right? Okay. And my toxic ex is an Aries. And I remember when I met him, I was like, I don't want to date another Aries, because Aries men are very fiery, just like.
All right.
And also, they both had severe commitment issues. So I would keep finding these commitment issues, Aries, and the guy that I really felt like I fell hard for this year, he told me he was an Aries, and I was like, I don't fuck with Aries. Like, I don't. Then I still went into it, like. Wow. And then it's just like, I'm thinking in my head, okay, how many Aries men am I gonna date before I get the picture that? But then he told me, you can't judge all Aries. Like, it's not cool to like compare your exes with me, right? And the commitment stuff, though, all the men I've so one of the things that really hurt me about my ex-husband when I first met him when I was 17, he told me he didn't believe in love, he didn't believe in God, and he didn't believe in marriage, right? So I believed in all those things, being a bleeding heart, and I was raised super Christian. So as a 17-year-old, you can put yourself in the mind of a 17-year-old girl who's never really been in love. This is like her first love. I would tell him I love you, and for the first year and a half, he would say, thank you, I like you very much. And it killed me. It like tore my heart. Like, it killed, like, even now I get teary thinking about it. Like, that's tough, because I already believed deep down inside that I was unlovable. And so
Yeah,
here's this
I
man
hear you.
that I'm in love with
Reinforcing those
confirming.
feelings. Yeah,
Exactly. Right, right. So
reinforcing
it,
those feelings you had inside.
yeah. So it's funny when you backwards engineer your life and look at the decisions and everything that brought you up to here, you're like, oh, well, it makes sense. Like, it makes sense why some of the actions I took were shitty, you know, and not saying it's justified cheating on him, but I see why that Hannah did it, you know. I see all the things. And he's forgiven me a long time ago. We talked about this and I was like, I told him, have you really truly gotten over it? Like, forgive me. He's like, Hannah, I forgive you a long time ago. And I told him, I haven't forgiven myself. You
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear
So,
you. So talk to me about the learnings now. From all of these experiences we talked about, what have you learned? What has it taught you about yourself and kind of, you know, self-improvement?
that
Yeah, go on.
I have a lot of work to do. So, um, so one of the things about this guy this year that really I think I fell hard for him is because I told him in the beginning, I'm not really ready for a relationship. I'm just kind of seeing what's out in the dating pool, which is like, why would I do that if I'm not ready for a relationship? Why be out there anyway, right? But I guess I wanted a relationship again because that's what I'm used to, right? Jumping into, but I was fooling myself and telling myself, I'm just going to see what's out there. And I said, why are you still talking to me when I've told you, like, obviously I'm not ready for a relationship? And this is what he said. He said, you seem lovable. And that,
That did it.
like, an arrow to my heart, because here I'd spent almost 2 decades and a half believing I'm not lovable, just out of a relationship with my ex-husband, or not ex-husband, my ex, the toxic ex, who basically would say the words I love you, but didn't show me any love. I
Mm,
was literally starving for love and emotion and affection. And so when you're starving and you're thirsty, if someone gives you some scraps, you're like, oh, this tastes so good, you know? And so him saying you seem lovable, I was like, oh, he sees something in me that I don't see in myself, that I'm lovable. Like he sees that, you know? And it was just like, I was like hooked, line and sinker.
that
So
quenched your thirst. That Kool-Aid has never tasted that good.
no, and so, but the thing is, I also thank him too in my head because not that he's the reason, but he was part of a huge catalyst in my self growth. Like that's the time I started my fitness journey. I also started my trauma informed coaching. So right now, I would say I learned that one, I am lovable. Right, that was a belief that I picked up, that I'm unlovable sometime long ago. That is not true. That I have a lot of negative beliefs about myself that I want, not need to, but that I want to rewrite, because I don't want to tell anyone you need to rewrite it. It's up to you. You always have a choice. I want to rewrite those beliefs, right? Also showed me that my own part in all these toxic relationships. And then the biggest thing I've learned right now, and I'm learning, is unconditional love. That has really been on my mind a lot, is that you really have to have, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, unconditional love for yourself
Definitely.
to live the life of your dreams, to be the person you want to be, because you're pretty much your worst critic.
Yeah,
Other
definitely.
people really, yeah, as sad as it sounds, nobody really gives a fuck about you as much as they care about themselves. Sorry if I'm cussing. I don't know if I like to cuss on here, but
You are. You're fine.
nobody really, yeah, cares about you as much as you care about yourself, right? And so if you're constantly talking shit to yourself in your head, like what a horrible life is that? Imagine if you had like this voice that you have in your head was an actual visible virtual person all day long jabbering at you about how terrible you are. At the end of the day, you're going to want to punch him in the face and you're just going to be miserable. And yet we talk to ourselves this way all the time, constantly. And being coached by these coaches really brought me more awareness about the negative self-talk that I had. Because when I would tell them things about I felt embarrassed or awkward about, they'd be like, okay, do you see, I'm hearing the words you're saying, and the words you're saying are things like stupid, dumb, like so stupid, you know? And she's like, would you talk to your best friend this way? I mean, you're talking about yourself and your actions and your behavior that way. it's very harsh. It's, you can
Mm,
have, you're allowed to have more grace and compassion for yourself, you
there
know?
you go.
Yeah. And the self-worth, like I was telling you that my toxic ex, basically the things he would say reflected what I felt about myself. One of the things he would always constantly tell me or ask me is, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And
Mm,
this is something that I would tell myself in my head all the time because I thought I was broken, that there's something wrong with me. So I'd always think to myself, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And so when he would say, what's wrong with you? You're fucked up. Like you're fucked up in the head. I like was like, you're reinforcing what I believe. So it must be true that because somebody
exactly.
else sees what I see. So it must be true that I'm fucked up, you know? Yeah. And
So
then
yeah, go.
I would say the 2.5 years ago is when I distinctly remember realizing I had zero self-respect and zero self-worth. It was when things got physical because I had taken his phone from him or whatever. I ended up on the floor and he was on top, standing, and he came over and he spit on my face.
What?
And in that moment, yes, I remember thinking, this man cannot love me because if you love someone, you don't do that. And then this was the part that killed me. I was living with him at the time. I knew logically that this was the end. Like this, you cannot come back from this, right? He never punched me because he's too smart for that. But there were times where he would go like this and hold his fist and just kind of push into my face. But the spitting was like the ultimate, I think, disrespect.
It is.
And this was the bad part. I got up after I that happened. I went out and I spit on his face too. So this is the part like where I play my part too. I
Mm,
behaved that way too. At that point though, I had been so fed up with him, like I couldn't do it anymore. And so it's still hard for me to forgive myself for doing that. But I see like the reactive abuse. It's called reactive abuse. You can only take so much abuse before you react back,
yeah,
right?
yeah. You have your
So I
limit.
did that. Right. And so I spit on his face back too. And I said, I just want you to know how it feels. Like, I want you to see what you did. I want you to understand how it feels, like what you just did to me. Right. And then I stayed with him 2 more years after that. And that is when I knew I literally have zero self respect, zero self worth, where I stay with this person after we pretty much, there's no coming back from this. And so this year was when I started working on the self-respect, self-worth, all those things. And there's still a lot to do because if you think about, there's 30 years of momentum of going in this direction and we're trying to change it around. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get really frustrated with myself. Like, why am I not like, why am I still like hung up over this guy? Like, why? And I'm like, and she's like, you have to be really compassionate. You've only been doing this like 5 months, the self work.
Mhm.
You've been on this trajectory for 30 years. We've been only doing this 5 months. And she's like, you've made huge leaps. Like your coaches and your people around you can see things you can't see. And my awareness is there where I know I've definitely come up a lot on my self-worth, all that stuff. But there's still a lot of work to be done. But now I'm enjoying the process. It's not like a mission, like I have to get here by a certain time. I have to heal by this age. You know what I mean? Like that's where I started at.
It's your energy. It's I can feel the light, the positivity, and
Thank you.
it's nice how you've got from that darkness. There's so much light that you give off. And could you talk a bit about your Instagram account and what you try and do? I really enjoy it because it's really
Oh,
positive and it helps me to reflect on myself and really think and focus on the things that are really important to us as human
thank
beings,
you.
as people. So I respect
Yeah,
it.
I really appreciate you saying that. That's right. On my Instagram, I started off by talking about manifestation because I really believe that my life was terrible and that if I could manifest a dream house, money, riches, that I would be happy, which is no problem at all. I believe that is where a lot of people start, and that takes you on this beautiful
It does.
journey where you find out that, hey, I got the car, I've got the money, and I still feel like shit inside and I still feel empty. Not saying everybody's going to feel that way. That's what I found about myself. And so that really I love to share that experience on Instagram and find out what I've learned. It all ties into manifesting, because what you truly believe about yourself, what you truly believe about the world around you, people around you, is what you're constantly manifesting in your life. That's my belief, right? That's what resonates with me. And so if you don't have these things that are not healed, where as a child you were conditioned to believe you're not lovable, you're not beautiful,
Mm.
you're going to keep manifesting people
Yep,
who
that's right.
reinforce that. Yeah. So it all ties in together. So my I don't know exactly what it is, but it's tied to self-love, self-growth, self-healing. I really like to help people reflect, basically, like you said, on themselves. So it's like, hey, it's not just about getting the money and the car and this. That is beautiful goals. I think everyone should always go for what their desires are, because your desires propel growth. What you desire propels you to grow, right? But it also is a beautiful way to show you, like, hey, there's this unhealed part of you inside. There's this inner child in you that needs attention, that never got attention. And it's
100%.
just like all beautiful tied together. And I love to share that. That's what I do. So I don't really know what I do on Instagram. I just share that.
Good. It's good. It's all it helps your followers to really look at their own lives and kind of their own situation and look at, what is really important, because like you said, we
Mhm.
can chase these goals of that big house, that big car, the prettiest wife, the trophy wife,
Mhm.
sorry. But what is real happiness to us? And these materialistic things that we're chasing, what are they fulfilling? Are they
Right.
really satisfying our souls and um, really filling up our cups and making us feel happy inside, real true happiness? Because I think
Mhm.
sometimes we can get confused with that, can't we? Trying to chase
Right.
this, trying to chase that, of what are we chasing and why? Because I've been there in really well-paid jobs and the prettiest girlfriend, the latest Air Jordans, the whatever it was. I've been there, and at the end of the day, when I've stopped and just sat down and just with my own thoughts and thought, am I even happy?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
Because
I totally feel you. Yeah.
it's not serving me. It's making me look good to people who don't even really matter to me around me, or my circle, or my environment. It's making me look like I'm this, oh man, I want to be like Mike. So he's such a cool guy. He's always got the prettiest girl on his arm. He's always got and all this BS. So it was satisfying people that don't really matter, and who I don't class as real, important people to me. But that's how I was
Mhm.
so caught up in that whole thing of I've got to show myself as being this person. So at the end of the
Right.
day, I wasn't even being true to me, and I was being
Right.
someone else to make other
To
people,
impress people who didn't care.
at the end of
Right?
the day. But it made me look cool, and what's looking cool at the end of the day? It's nothing. It
You
doesn't
know,
satisfy you.
this is one of my favorite subjects. I talk about this a lot, is the ego,
Mm,
right?
yes.
It's a
Ego.
tool that every human has developed. The guy that I was really into, he told me he has no ego, and I was like, everyone has an ego, buddy.
Exactly.
But so to me, the ego is who you are, right? And the ego helps you to protect yourself because it believes that you need protecting, right?
Yeah.
And so you, like what you're talking about, the girls, the money, the car, it comes from an egoic place, but it's not bad. I don't think it's bad, because at the end of the day, it led you to realize that you weren't being authentic to yourself,
It's
right?
true. It's true.
Yeah. And then, like, so for me, it's like that ties in so well. Like, there's no bad path. If you do go down that road of chasing the girls, the cars, the money, it's okay. To me, everything is okay, because in the end, it'll work out. And if it
It
leads you
does.
back to yourself, if you self-reflect, some people never learn, right? But I also believe that's not true. I believe I always hope everybody will learn. But I'm reading this book called The Mastery or Self Mastery or Mastery of Self by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. And this book is amazing. It's talking about unconditional love. And I happen to find it right now when I'm focused on unconditional love. I manifested the book in my life. And he talks about having goals is different when you come from a place where you love yourself unconditionally and you forgive yourself and you're no longer shaming and criticizing yourself, and you do like you 100% are good here, you love yourself, accept yourself. Then having those goals, it's fun. It's like an extra game. It's not you're trying to get the girls and the cars to make yourself feel lovable, to make yourself more valuable, to make yourself worthy, because you know no matter what you do or you don't do, you are inherently worthy, that you have value, right? So coming from that place and doing those goals is a completely different mindset, right? It's the same material stuff. You can do whatever you want, right? Life is it's a game. It's enjoying.
Definitely.
Yes, have those goals. But if you come from a place of like, I need that to look cool. I need that so people respect me. I need that so I'm being loved. It's a way different mindset, and you don't enjoy it when you get it. You get the trophy girl, you get the Air Jordans, you get the money, and you still feel like it only satisfies for a couple of days maybe.
That's right.
And there's that hole still inside, you know.
100%. As we draw this great episode to a close, any last thoughts to leave on journey, and maybe to help others about toxic relationships?
So since this episode's been a lot about toxic relationships, I want to say two things. One, shame is not a real emotion. When you feel shame, you can return it to the sender, wherever that came from. It was conditioned into us as children, right? So when you feel shame, you can say, that's not mine, and I send it back to wherever it came from, because shame is the number one thing I think that people feel about toxic relationships, shaming themselves. And then going in along hand in hand with that is forgiveness, self-forgiveness. It took me years, and I'm still working on it, you know, on forgiving myself for behaving the way I did, the reactive abuse that I've done back, and then also forgiving myself for putting myself through that and being like, you should have known better. You knew mentally, like logically, you knew better, but why did you stay? Why did you keep going? And constantly critiquing and you know, criticizing myself. So in my case, I think a lot of people can relate. It wasn't really even forgiving the ex. It was forgiving. I couldn't forgive myself that I had wasted so many years. So that's the two things I want to leave this episode is: shame is not yours. You can return it to whoever it came to. It's not yours. So when you feel shame come up, I just mentally think, I'm going to return it to the sender. It's not mine. And then two is forgiving myself and having grace, saying I was doing the best that I can at the time. Given my life experiences, given what I knew, I was doing the best that I could. And there comes the unconditional love all tied into it. So that's what I would like to leave with.
Thank you very much. Listen, it's been a pleasure, Hannah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I enjoyed
Thank you for having me on.
That was deep. You know, that was fire. You know, we had fun here as well, and there are lots of learnings to be had from this. People, please like, share, and subscribe to the video, and go and follow Hannah at what you on Instagram or wherever else you're on. What's your Instagram?
Oh, it's Hannah. So HANNAH ask yes. Hannah ask yes. It's actually Hannah A Sykes, but it's Skies. Sorry. So it's Hannah ask yes is what it comes down to, with two S's at the end. So you'll find me.
On, or is that it really?
That's pretty much all I have right now is Instagram. Cool. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, Hannah.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Bye.